Amen. Well, good morning again, and welcome back to week 2. We are, if you're just joining us for the first time this week, last week we really just kicked off a new series or campaign or whatever you want to call it called For Others. And really just kind of working to define what I believe this church has been about, what we want to continue to be about. And I really asked you 2 questions last week. And the 2 questions, I think about church a lot because, it's my thing. But the questions I asked you last week is, what are we known for collectively as a body of believers, like this church, who we are, Salem Grace, in this community, and Salem and community, and, Iuka and Patoka or wherever else, however far out. What is it that we're known for, and then what do we want to be known for? And I think that's an important question for all of us to consider. It's not just something that I need to consider, because I think this church is a representation of all of you. We are what make this church. And so it is what we all are collectively together. And so we spent a lot of time talking about that last week. I talked about what we want to be known for, what we think we're known for now, and which is kind of hard to gauge, because and at some point in time maybe we'll get a video or so. I would love to just interview people. And I would love to even hear if some of you, just ask your friends or people that maybe don't attend here regularly, just ask people in the community, hey, what do you think Salem Grace is known for? How do you know them? And some people are like, I don't know, it's just south of Sale Barn. Some people don't even know where we're at. But I think that's just important for us to consider, of what we want to be known for, and then what we think we're known for now. And there's usually a gap between those two. There's a gap between what we think we're known for and what we want to be known for. And so one of the things that we want to be known for together as a church, and we're embarking on this, is that we want to be for people or for others. And so we know that we're living in a culture that is changing incredibly rapidly, and that the way we gather, everything is different post-pandemic, how we connect, how we shop, how we engage with one another. There's been a lot of books, and there's already been a lot of books and articles and podcast about the post-pandemic church, which is kind of interesting. There's a book by Tom Rainer that he wrote, a really great author, but he points out in his book, a few things that really what his observation has been is that there's new gatherings. We're gathering in different ways than we ever did before. Obviously there's a lot of people still watching us online right now, streaming live, which is something that we weren't doing real great at before the pandemic. We're living in a more digital world than we've ever been before. That we're rethinking our facility opportunities. Churches are starting to rethink their facility and how we use our building, and we're seeing a shift in that in the church world of and what the church gets used for. And I know some of you aren't around here every day, but I can tell you that this church, this building, this facility, this place gets used a ton. And I'm proud of that. I want our church to be used by our community. We've always been really, really outrageously generous with our facility here, and we believe that you guys have given faithfully, so we have this facility, and so it gets used a lot. And if you don't believe that, just talk to our cleaning people; they'll tell you. But it gets used a ton, and we love that. We're all these different changes. We want to but the goal in the post-pandemic is we have to reconnect with our community. It's almost like we have to regather, the flock has been scattered, and then we kind of have to regather this flock. And so that's the goal that we're trying to accomplish. And really just putting a name, this for others, putting this tag or whatever you want to call it, a hashtag or a marketing, however you want to say. We want people in our community to know that we are for them, and so we do that. Now everything has changed. We know that change is inevitable in our society and culture, and every now and then we have to rethink the way we do things. There was a phenomenon when I was a kid. It usually happened, I think, in around the fall, and some of you younger generation may not have any clue what I'm talking about, but I will. When I tell you this, some of us are going to really, really connect with this. But every now and then in the fall, in that time of year, we would go to the mailbox, and in that mailbox would come this fat catalog. Did you ever get one? Everybody get, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like the Sears and Roebuck catalog or the JCPenney. You remember that? Do you remember getting the catalog? We were like, it's here, yes. because exactly what you would do, like as a kid, it was like a toy store in your hand, right? Like, and I know some of you already, so you know what you did, right? You got a marker, right? Or some kind of pen or instrument, and you circled everything you wanted in that thing, right? For Christmas, it was like, I can remember once there was this bike, and it looked like a dirt bike. I'm like, oh, I want that, and I'm like circling, and you circle all of that stuff in this catalog, and then you were disappointed at Christmas because you got none of it, right? So that's how that worked. But Sears and Roebuck, and this is kind of interesting. I kind of nerdy about like the business side of this stuff because that's my background. But in 1892 is when Sears and Roebuck came out with the first catalog. Isn't that amazing? Like in 1892, somebody at Sears, Mr. Sears, actually is like, hey, let's make this mail order thing. How about that, right? Like, how cool would it be if we just sent you a catalog, they could see the stuff that we have for sale, you mail in, you buy it, and we ship it to you. It was like the Amazon of 1892, right? Like this catalog. And so it was revolutionary. At that point in time in history, nobody had a catalog. You had to hitch up the wagon and go down to the general store and buy your stuff, right? But in this time, when Mr. Sears came out with this catalog, it revolutionized. I actually had somebody in the first service tell me that, it's true story, but he bought a horse out of the Sears and Roebuck catalog, which is crazy to think about. And actually, we were in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, and that was where their hub was, where they had, you could buy monkeys, you could buy anything. I don't think you can buy a monkey on Amazon, but how cool is that? Like if you could buy a monkey. But anyway, in 1892, he revolutionized how stuff was sold. And now, fast forward, how many of you been to a Sears lately? They also revolutionized the mall. Did you realize that? That Sears was kind of on the forefront of malls. Like when we were a kid, you go to the mall, every mall had a JCPenney's, had a Sears, didn't they? And now you go into a mall and it's a ghost town, right? Been to the Marion Mall lately? You can buy a camper. But it changed. In business, I read a bunch of business articles that really attributed, and actually Sears and Roebuck is bankrupt now. There's a few here and there, but for the most part, the company is bankrupt. And experts have pointed that it really came down to two decisions that leaders at Sears have made. And the first one was this, that they refused or they made a decision to not invest in their locations, to upgrade their facilities and their buildings. They didn't make that a priority. And they point to the other reason is they failed to get engaged in the digital online space. Sears just made a decision and said, hey, we're going to leave that to somebody else. And now we have Amazon. The only really retailer that has any competition right now to Amazon is Walmart, and they've kind of reinvented themselves. I haven't been to the grocery and put groceries in a cart in a long time. Anybody else do the Walmart pickup? The greatest thing since sliced bread. I mean, sure, you order Cheerios and then you get Yoo-Hoo-Ohs, but, but we're okay with that. Like, I'm good with that, right? Because of the convenience. And so we have this, I was on a call this week, and they shared some post-pandemic statistics about church, and it was interesting. And you can see it looking around the room if you were here pre-COVID and post-COVID, and it happens in a lot of churches, but only 35% of regular church attenders have re-engaged actually in face-to-face services. And that's okay if you're watching online. That's cool. We love that you're there. It's just different. It's changing. And so they actually say that some may actually never come back in person, but I'm a still believer that we need this. I need y'all, and I think we need each other. And so the reality is that most of us, when we see our society and we see culture and we see all of that's happening in our world and how fast it's changed even in the last year, we want some of that to change, but I think in most part, people are looking for somewhere or somebody else to do it. Like, we're becoming dependent on our government or the healthcare system or who's president or who's doing this or what kind of healthcare system or our educators or our teachers or our businesses or our media or arts and entertainment or sports or religious. We want somebody else to do that. And so when I think about our church and who we are in this movement of Christianity and this goal of that we have to the purpose that we've been placed here for and to achieve the mission that Jesus set us on was to go and tell people about Jesus Christ. Like this movement has been moving. This Christianity movement has been moving for literally thousands of years. It won't stop. I'm not worried about it because I've read the end of the book and Jesus said that not even the gates of hell will stand against it. So I don't really care what they try to do or what this world tries to do to stamp out Christianity or the good news of the gospel. It ain't going to happen, okay? Regardless of how hard they try, I ain't worried about that. Because this movement will continue to move, and it will continue to move in a way that it has done so for 1,000 years or better, in the same way, and that is through individual people who are willing to let God do something through them. That is how it's going to move. It is going to move when you and I and all of us collectively do something together. When we decide that we are going to be for others, that's what it's going to do through doers. There's a great quote by Brad Montague. It says, "Dare to dream." Anybody dream of doing something? Like I've had dreams forever of playing guitar, starting a business. I've not done any of them. I can't do it. I bought a guitar, gave it away, hurts my fingers. I just quit. We dare to dream, but he says, but also do. For dreamers are many, but doers are few. Matthew said it this way in chapter 7, verse 20. Yes, just as you can identify a tree by its fruit, you can also identify people by their action. It becomes, so last week we talked about what we can do together, this church, Salem Grace, under the umbrella of Salem Grace, and I read you our vision statement, and I think some of you liked it, I don't know. But I read this vision about how we're going to be for others, and that sounds great. It sounds like a church you want to be a part of. This week, and I asked you those two questions, who are we for, and who do we want to be known for corporately? What do we want to be known for? Today, I want to focus that on you as an individual. I'm going to ask you the same question. Who are you for? Personally. Not your wife, not your spouse, not your kids. Who are you for personally? Second question is, who do you want to be known for? How do you want to be known? How would you like for people to know you? If this church is going to be for others, we need to be a church of action. We need to be a church of doers. It will require all of us to be engaged in our own way. Salem Grace is not going to do anything unless you do, unless we all do. And I need your help in more ways than one. Mother Teresa has a great quote. I saw this quote from Mother Teresa this week, and it's perfect. She said, I cannot do what you can do. And you cannot do what I can do. Together, we can do great things. And I believe that is true for this church. If I didn't believe it, I wouldn't be your pastor. If I didn't believe that we could reach this community and seek out lost people and tell them about the hope and the good news of Jesus Christ, I would just quit. But I believe we have that potential because that's in our DNA. It's been part of who this church has been from the time it started in a garage years ago. And I guarantee when those people started that, they didn't say, like I said last week, they didn't start this church and nobody said, hey, I hope this dies someday. It's our turn. It's all of our turns. So last week I talked about those two questions in relation to the church, your church. What do you want to be known for? And what are you currently known for? I think we all like that. I read the vision statement last week. I think you guys liked it. However, that's not going to be worth the paper it's written on unless all of us agree that we want to be a part and play a role in that. Because here's the thing. Look, we got this cool banner. We're working on more stuff. We're going to have shirts. We're going to have some window clings that you can put on your car that say For Others and Salem Grace. And we're going to be out in the park next week. And hopefully we'll have our shirts maybe by then. We'll have some shirts available if you want to get a shirt that say For Others. We can put that on and we can wear the shirts and we can stick the window cling on our car. But if we are not genuinely for other people, we're going to lose credibility. Jeff Henderson says it this way. He says, when you are known for one thing, but talk about being known for something else, you lose credibility. And once you lose credibility, you lose trust. And trust takes a lifetime to gain, but only a moment to lose. And we can go out and we can talk to our community and we can meet people and we can say, hey, Salem Grace, woohoo, this great church, we're for you. But if we're not really for them, we're going to lose credibility. So I'd ask you the two same questions this morning. What do you want to be known for personally? And what are you currently known for? Like if we were to interview your friends, what would they say you are for personally? If I were to go back there and interview your kids and ask them that question and say, hey, who are mommy and daddy for? What would their answer be? Would it be something that you want them? Is it something you want to be? Because I think we all have this idea of what we want to be known for, right? Like in our heads, we see a picture of ourselves that is like, I'm a good person. I think I'm like this. But do other people see that in us? That's where the rub comes in. Like, would our weekend friends say the same thing about us as our church friends? Would the people we work with say that about us? How would they answer that second question? Would there be consistency between all of them, between what we think we want to be known for and what we're actually known for? What are the descriptive words that people would use to describe you? What would they say about you in your future? I know that's morbid to kind of think about, but like, at the end of my life, honestly, that was one of the motivating factors for me to quit my job as a banker and become a pastor. Was because at the end of my life, I didn't want to get down to the end of my life and just say people were like, I thought about people, what would people say about me? What would I be known for? Well, he was a great banker. Yay. I want to be for people. I want to get down in my life and say, you know what? He generally cared for people. Didn't always get it right. He wasn't perfect. But he cared for people. And he cared about the gospel and the good news of Jesus Christ. That's what I want to be known for. Am I there yet? No. There's a gap. Funny story. I have three brothers, Farron and Chris and Kylan, one older and two younger. And when we were growing up, my parents worked hard, and they saw to it that we all had braces. Anybody have braces? Anybody? Okay. Horrible time. Thank you. I see that hand. I'll pray for you. Yeah, hated it, but we all had braces. And so when we get to get braces and you go to get braces and you get that little, you go to the dentist and they put that putty in the plate and they go, they take that impression thing and then they tell you all what has to happen. Well, when they did that, my brothers, Farron, Chris, and Kylan, the roof of their mouth was super narrow. There's way more detail probably than you need, but that's okay. And so they had to put this device in the roof of their mouth that was going to spread the roof of their mouth apart. Now, me, I didn't have to have that because apparently my mouth was big enough. And some of you are like, yeah, we know. So I didn't have to have that, but they did, and it was great because I got to laugh at them. So every day, they had this little plate in the roof of their mouth, and they had this little key, and they would stick it in there, and they would turn it one click every day. Click. Every day they got up, click. And what it did is it spread the roof of their mouth apart until, it's really kind of gross, but the top of their mouth, unfused and then fused back together. But a result of that was that it made a huge gap in their front two teeth. Like, there was a giant gap between the two front teeth. They looked like Mike Tyson. They were like strawberry, strawberry in the face quick. It's hilarious. I loved every minute. I would have killed to have a picture of that today. But they walked around for about a month, all three of them, at their point in time, with this giant gap between their teeth. And it was just so funny. Because then when they got braces, the goal began to close the gap, right? And so It's the same thing. Like every day, it didn't close overnight, obviously. Like it took weeks for that to close, but eventually the gap closed and their teeth came together and they have pretty teeth, whatever. So, end of story. The thing is, I think some of us, when we look at our lives and we look at what God has called us to, all we see is the gap. And you sit there and you evaluate yourself and you go, man, I don't have anything to offer. You know, Jesus is way over here and I'm way over here and I've got this gap and there's a lot that I don't understand. Let me tell you something. There's a big church word called sanctification. Big church word, don't know what it means. Here's what it means. It means every day doing something to get a little bit more like Jesus. And over time, the goal in our life, hopefully when we get down to the end of our life, we will have closed that gap a little between what we look like and what we want to be known for and what Jesus is like. Let me ask you a question. What is your favorite role or responsibility in life right now? What is it? What are you passionate about? Is it your kids? Is it baseball? Is it horses? Is it epoch? Is it the gym? What is it? What is your favorite role and responsibility right now in life? Is there a gap between the two questions that you have that I asked you? What am I known for? And what do I want to be known for? What would I like to have had said about me at the end of my life? And if we're honest, there's probably a gap there. Where do you believe is the largest gap is and what others say? Paul understood this struggle. I think sometimes our lives is a constant struggle to try to close that gap and be a little bit more like Jesus. And we don't always get it right. Romans chapter 7, verse 15 says this. I don't really understand myself, for I want to do what is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate. Does anybody else relate to that? Me all the time. Paul describes it as a struggle that we can identify. And for others, it just means, when we say for others, it just basically means making one step a little bit closer to do one thing for somebody else other than yourself. Basically, people for people. And Jesus gave us some specific instructions throughout the gospel on how we're to serve and love each other, especially with his disciples. And so when we say we're going to be for others, here's what it means. When I worked for the bank, I was a market manager, and I had all of these banking centers that I was responsible for. And so my job was to go into these banking centers and evaluate the manager, and I would evaluate the personal bankers and the employees, and I had to fill out this form, and I had to have a conversation with the manager. And one of the observations that I was supposed to make, and the question on the little form that I had, the question was, do they take a personal interest in our customer? And that has just always stuck with me, especially if there's ever a place that we should be taking a personal interest in people. It's in church, and as believers in Jesus Christ, we should be taking a personal interest in people. Like we are for others. I just think that sometimes we've become this kind of selfish society. And the disciples, I think we want to do great things. Disciples, there's a story in Mark chapter 10, verse 43 through 45. And then the disciples were having this discussion. They knew Jesus was going to leave. They knew he was going to come into his kingdom. And one of them said, hey, Jesus, when you come into your kingdom, the word they said was, we want to be in a place of honor. In other words, they were saying, hey, we want some clout. Like, we're your buds. We've been with you. We're 12 disciples here. We've walked with you. When you come into your kingdom, like, we want to have good jobs. Like, we want to be close to you. We want to be in charge of something. We want to lead. We want to have a place of honor in your kingdom. And then Jesus just whacked the legs out from underneath them, and he said this. But among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be a slave to everyone else. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. In other words, it's taking ourselves and putting ourselves second and putting others in front of ourselves and being a servant to this community and the people out there that we run into and rub elbows with and the people that you work with and your family members. How can we serve others better? That's the goal. Now, I have a challenge for you, and we're going to give you an opportunity this morning, and I have Jenny Griffin come up here in a minute, and she's going to share with you. But there's one opportunity that we're going to highlight today, and this is just an example. This is just one example of how you can be for others. And just share a quick story with you. Maybe you've heard this story. I remember reading a story about a kid and his little brother once, and his parents. The younger brother was a little sick and needed a blood transfusion, and the older brother, maybe you've heard this story, but the older brother had the same blood type. And so they needed to do a transfusion for the younger brother. And so they asked the brother and tried to explain to him, hey, we need to take some of your blood and give it to your brother. And so he was a little bit distraught over it, but he agreed and said, okay, it's for my little brother. And so they took him into the hospital, and they laid him on the gurney and hooked him up. And as they put the needle in to take his blood, he looked at his parents and said, is this when I die? Because in his mind, he was going to take all of his blood and give it to his brother. That's the kind of servant that it takes. And so I just want you to watch a quick video real quick.
Think about if it was your child. Think about if it was your sister.
As much as I've done for them, I feel like they've done equally for me.
You get called and you answer that call. And that's something that I feel anybody would do for a patient, but it's a wonderful feeling to have.
So this is Jenny Griffin, and Jenny has something that has hit her family close, and I want Jenny just to have an opportunity to share. And Jenny approached me months ago about this conversation, to have this conversation with respect to Be the Match. She sent me a message, said, hey, could we highlight this one morning in the service? We picked a date. It was this date. I had no idea where I was going with the message at this point in time. It just happened to be today. So I think it's just a perfect example of how we can be for others. So Jenny, I'm going to let you share just a little bit.
Yes, so to tell you about Be the Match, it's the ability to be on the bone marrow registry, and as the video kind of highlighted, it might be a blood donation or bone marrow. And the reason I am here is because someone I love was diagnosed with leukemia just over a year ago. My best friend's son, I think they're going to put a picture up. That's Lucas. And behind, I forgot to mention earlier, was his sister Leah, who was born in the midst of all this. But he was diagnosed with leukemia just after the age of 2. And it's been his parents' mission to be the light to others in the midst of their family's battle with cancer. They try to do acts of kindness all the time since this diagnosis. Today, they actually are hosting a Be the Match drive and a blood drive as well where they live. So the video highlighted some important statistics and how easy it is to register. I could sit up here all day and tell you testimonies and facts about being on the registry. I simply ask you to consider registering today. if you're between the ages of 18 and 44, to literally have the opportunity to save someone's life. You could be their cure. For some of the blood cancers or blood diseases, such as like sickle cell anemia, a donor is possibly their option for that. So you can text NAZ, N-A-Z, to 61474, and you'll get a link to register and see if you are a candidate, and then from there you can see me in the back and get the swab kit, and then I'll mail it off for you. I'll wrap up with a brief message from Lucas's parents of thanks. Hi, Salem Grace. I just want to take a minute to say thank you to everyone who is willing to join the registry. Although our son's road has been a rocky one, we are grateful his treatment is working and he does not need to be on the registry. I can't imagine the pain, suffering, and fear that both the patients and their families are experiencing, just waiting, hoping, and praying for a match. Thank you for being selfless, for trying to be someone's blessing, a true lifesaver. My son's struggles are what inspired the drive today. I can only hope that because of those struggles, we can make some good out of it and help save the life of someone. John 1:5 says, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." So just as Trent's had a mission today, for me to tell you to go be the light, to go be for others, to go be Salem Grace. And you can see me after. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Just one example, and I know that's something we're highlighting today. And so if you're under the age of 44 and would consider to do something for others, that's the goal. It can be anything. We just want to be for other people. We want to be known. I know that you want to be known for that. And so let's start taking a personal interest. If you're I can't give, well, I passed that just maybe a few years ago. But I'm grateful for people like Jenny that are willing to do that, and we had several that did that in the first service. Just one example. Like I said, there are so many opportunities like that come up in the course of a week or a day. And so here's my challenge. I'm going to ask you that question. Let's start taking a personal interest in the people around us. Let's be for others. And the only way our church is going to do that is if each one of us are willing to take that step and do that and be for others. So I challenge you this week. Here's my challenge for you as you leave here today, to do something for someone else every day this week. That's my challenge. I don't care what it is, like pay for somebody in McDonald's line. Do something every day this week to impact our community. Send them a note. Buy somebody's dinner. I don't know what it is, but let's start being for others. You're going to hear a lot more about it. We're going to have stuff available. We're going to be in the park next week. Come and join us. We're going to kind of hang out and have fun. And we want our community to be able to see us and know that we are for them. You'll start to see some more signage. You may have noticed a new sign when we come in. But just grateful for this place. I'm grateful for what God is going to do through this. I believe that we have an opportunity to reach and connect with our community like we've never had before. And people are open to those new ways. And so we're just going to pray that God will send us forward. Stand with me this morning. I'm going to pray for you. Father, thank you so much for being for us. And thank you for sending your son and for all that we have to be grateful about. Lord, I just pray that we as individuals today, just that we would search our hearts, search our souls, think about those two questions of what we want to be known for and what we're currently known for. And Lord, I just pray that you would help us to engage a whole room full of doers, because we know that if we do things together, we can do great things in our community. I believe that your message is still true. The message of the gospel is still powerful. It's freeing. It gives people hope. Lord, I just pray that we would have the opportunity to build relationships in our community and with people we work with and run into on a daily basis. Lord, that you would feed those people to us and that we would be responsible with that when you've done that. Help us to always be ready to give an answer for the hope that we have. Lord, take us from this place, but not from your presence. Help us to go take a personal interest in the people around us this week and help us to be for others this week. In your precious holy name, I pray. Thank you for being here. Have a great week. Go see Jenny if you're so inclined to. And if not, we'd love for your help and grab some chairs. Have a great week.